run through a bunch of different things. I find this one hard to believe because everything that's on TV that's NFL related, most all of us watch. Did not happen this week. After a really good year of big-time teams in the NFL, the TV ratings came out, and the wild card ratings went down the drain. The wild card weekend TV ratings collectively were down 9%, which is kind of hard to understand because all things NFL related on TV usually are successful. But at the end of the day, there were 3 blowouts along the way, so that's why these games happened the way they did. Green Bay, Philadelphia, they drew 35 million viewers. Eagles, of course, just tore apart Jordan Love and the Packers, down 11%. Broncos, Bills, the Bo Mix storyline ended. They had 31 million viewers. Actually, they broke even to last year's same telecast. Rams, Minnesota, 25 million. That was down 13% for the Rams' upset win over the Vikings. Chargers, Houston, 25 million as Justin Herbert threw the game away. That was down 7%. Tampa, Washington, they drew 28 million, but that was down 19% despite the last-minute heroics of Jaden Daniels. And Baltimore, Pittsburgh, which was a streaming game, they had 22 million viewers, 3% drop. So TV ratings virtually every game went down. You kind of surprised at that?
You know, it's funny because I think they've been milking the NFL cow for revenue and ratings for so long that finally I think the spigot is running dry. But it is funny, though, the TV Guide logo up there. I mean, when was the last time you looked at a TV Guide?
1962.
Yeah, something like that. And you know what's funny is I follow some of these guys on social media, and they're sports history guys, and they'll show, if you remember on the TV Guide, on some pages they have a half page and they have the roster of like the Vikings versus the Raiders and the Super Bowl 10 and in 1975, I think it was. And I remember looking at that and was just I would just be absorbed by looking at all those names and numbers and
study that stuff.
Yeah. And then they would have the sports they would have a sports area where they would show just the sports content and when it was on TV. But TV Guide, I mean, that was like probably one of the best magazines for a little while, and that's gonzo now.
You could pick it up on Thursday at the Delicatessen where I grew up on Long Island, and then you'd start funneling through the pages, and it'd show you Friday and Saturday into the following week. Yes.
Yeah.
Circa 1962.
But yeah, the ratings down is a surprise to me, and it is weird that the Charger game was the one that had a big increase.
Yeah. But it still lost numbers.
Okay.
Still down in percentage. Second name, Jim Harbaugh. Tent Revival speech continues. His exit interview, the end of the disappointing season. He just praised Justin Herbert. This was not on Justin Herbert. He must have read my column. This was a consummate Charger team loss. It was just not the young quarterback who got his ass kicked because he had no help at all. But the big storyline off the field, Jim Harbaugh is going to go 2 surgeries. Hip replacement, John and I talked about that, and heart ablation for this irregular heartbeat. The ablation one is a fairly normal procedure. The hip replacement is going to take some time. We'll see once they get through the draft, get into the mini camps, whether Jim Harbaugh is actually going to be functional on the field or riding a golf cart. But Jim Harbaugh will have 2 surgeries. Interesting story in Pittsburgh. Man, as a talk show host, I kind of wish I was there. I'm talking about the end of season Mike Tomlin press conference. The only word I can use to describe it, because I saw it, was defiant. Or maybe I should use the adjective, or maybe it's an adverb, bleeping defiant. He put on a show. If I was there in the front row, he would have been answering my questions in the same tone that he answered all the other questions. These are some of the quotes from him. We are not stuck in our ways. In other words, everybody's critiquing the Steelers for how poor their offense is and their skill possession players and their roster choices. We're not stuck in our ways. And then he says, I embrace the challenge. I own the record. And suddenly everybody in Western Pennsylvania and Steeler fans nationwide are of the opinion, yeah, 18 non-losing seasons, that's pretty good. The hell he's done in the playoffs? Because they've now gone 0 for 6. They've not won a playoff game in 8 years under Tomlin's reign. But he says he embraces it and he owns it. He said, football justice, we got it. We earned this 5-game losing streak at the end of the season. He says, you get what you deserve. And he says, I enjoy the urgency of fixing this. There will be changes. The work ahead starts the next day. He was damn defiant. He took a lot of heat. That's okay. That's good. Next one. Caitlin Clark. This is a scary part of sports, scary part of society. I'm not quite sure how this happened. How did somebody get access to Caitlin Clark's cell phone number? Caitlin Clark has been stalked by a guy in Texas since November. The guy is homeless, lives in his car, is a WNBA fan. He drove to Indianapolis and staked out the arena where the Indiana Fever played and tried to confront her. Guy was finally arrested. The guy is facing 6 years in prison for sexual harassment, stalking, and threatening Caitlin Clark. Sadly, that's a price you pay when you're a star, because not everybody out there is a fan. There's a lot of sick people out there. College football. We're getting ready for Monday's championship game. We're going to talk about that on the Monday Bonus Podcast. Coaches Committee this week, John, just wrapped up its coaches convention. They have proposed to the NCAA, and they want action, radical change transfer portal. Next year, they want one transfer window. They want it open for just 10 days. They don't want it to start till January 2nd. They want it to end January the 12th after the major bowl games. He says, we must stop this mass migration of everybody going everywhere and wrecking teams at the end of the season and wrecking teams in their own bowl preparation or impacting teams that are even in the playoffs. NCAA's response, we will negotiate the dates. Maybe it's not going to be January 2 to January 12. Maybe it's going to be February 1st to February 15th. But there will be one window, and it'll be much more limited. So the NCAA is going to respond. LIV golf. I bet you'd be thumbing through the TV guide trying to find out, when's the LIV season start? Where the hell are they playing? What network are they on? Interesting story coming out of Spain. His name is Eugenio Chacarra, outstanding Spanish player. He jumped to LIV 3 years ago. Won one tournament the first year. Since then has not done anything, has been let go, in essence, fired by LIV. Interesting press conference. Because he violated his tour card and jumped, 1 year ban from the PGA Tour. The current rule, which has been in effect since Phil Mickelson left, is if you leave, you can't be reinstated till 1 year after you play your final event. So Chacarras, he's going to sit this year. He's got no place to go because the EuroLeague will not allow him to come back. He is going to try to make it on his way back, going through the Asian League. He did make a really interesting comment that if John Riley wins on the PGA Tour, it impacts the rest of his career. It impacts his career as a golfer, as a guy be able to market himself, might put himself in the run for all the major tournaments, Grand Slam, Masters, all that. He says, changes your life forever. He says, if you win on the LIV Tour, it doesn't matter. You get paid whether you finished 1 or you get paid whether you finish 30. You just go on to the next tournament and wait to cash a check. It's interesting. From within comes a player who said, what's going on over there, Saudi Arabia, LIV, all their money, it doesn't have the same impact on me as it would be if I won and qualified to go to the Masters. Isn't that interesting? So, John, a lot of different topics on the table. Start from Harbaugh, work your way through Tomlin to Caitlin to the transfer portal and LIV golf.
You know, when I see Harbaugh walking and he's got that hitch in his step, I could just feel the pain that he must be having with that. I imagine it's arthritis or something, maybe from some old NFL football injuries. So wish him well. Tomlin is a dude, you know, I mean, like, he's a guy that you really like, but you were saying in the best 15 that he hammered down. He goes, we are definitely going to have Russell Wilson and
Justin Fields
as our quarterbacks. And I'm thinking to myself, who's the GM in Pittsburgh and that makes these decisions for those two guys?
A new guy by the name of Omar Khan I think it's his second or third year there. They've drafted well, but they've drafted non-sexy positions. They fixed the offensive line. Now they're really young, and the offensive line struggled last year, but he's got a lot of high draft picks there. And obviously, they built this defense, highest paid defense in the NFL, a lot of draft picks there. But where they're drafting, that's the back third of the draft. There's no marquee franchise-changing quarterbacks in the back third, and they're always drafting in the back third, etc. Now, his comment, though, was one of these guys is going to start all 17 games. Now, he didn't say Russell Wilson, did not say Justin Fields. One of these guys. They just picked up a third quarterback yesterday. The backup quarterback in Miami, Skylar Thompson, who became a free agent, has signed in Pittsburgh, but he's not a game changer. So Pittsburgh, to me, has to fix the skill position guys around whomever the quarterback is. And Pittsburgh's got to get speed at wide receiver and speed at running back. I bet that's going to be the emphasis. He's a dude, there's no doubt about it, but this is not Pittsburgh Steelers football. I'll be honest with you. They are pissed in Aliquippa and McKees Rocks and Oil City and New Kensington because having a nice season is not equal to going deep in the playoffs.
Well, Tomlin has a Super Bowl trophy, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think you'd have to go back to who was that original coach back in the day? Chuck Noll.
Well, he was the one that turned the whole franchise.
So, but he had 4, right?
And then Cowher.
And then Cowher had 1, and I think Tomlin has 1, right? So, yeah, I mean, if you win a Super Bowl, it's hard to the fans to get really that angry with you. But to your point, he's been sort of middling. He's in the playoffs, but not usually a top seed, and then they end up getting low picks in the draft.
Steeler football, the way Steeler football has been, does not seem to be able to compete to what modern day NFL football has become. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, bring back Cordell Stewart. We need Slash behind center. Okay. Caitlin Clark, that's a sad story, but that's more of a comment on society and mental health and everything else. So hopefully they wrap that up. Looking forward to the NCAA playoffs. I mean, are we down to the final 4 or the final 2? The final 2, the championship game.
Cameron James Monday night.
That's going to be awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. And the LIV story, I think, is great. I mean, I think he spoke the truth. That kid, I never heard of him, because he won an LIV tournament. Of course, I've never heard of him because we're not watching on television. And he's right. You win a PGA tournament, it does change your life. Now, by the way, did you see that, the Torrey Pines tournament coming here to San Diego? There aren't getting that many big names for that tournament.
As of today, now the tournament's another week out. As of today, they have only 20 of the top 40 money winners on the tour. Now, granted, there's some really good names. Jason Day, the great Australian, is back. He always comes and plays here. Colin Morikawa, I believe, will be here. He always plays well here. But this has become a second-tier tournament, sadly, because it's not one of the tournaments that has now the guaranteed pool of $25 million. The other problem is the roster of guys on the PGA Tour outside of Xander Schauffele and Scotty Scheffler is not what it used to be when we had the legendary Phil Mickelson, when we had Tiger Woods, when we had Dustin Johnson, when we had the guys at the Dork that you root for, Bryson DeChambeau.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those guys are not here. They're over there. They're being the LIV, where nobody watches a tournament, even knows where the hell the tournaments are being played and what channel are they on because it's not listed in your TV guide.
Hey, what's your take on that new video game golf where they have the pros show up and it's all virtual?
Tiger and Rory.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had the first one a week ago. 9.9 million people who had nothing to do watched it on ESPN. 9.9 million. But it's an experiment. It's an exhibition. Is it real? No. Why would I spend what limited hours I have, aside from my work detail here, to watch that? It doesn't mean anything.
Well, it meant something to a lot of people. It seems like it's getting a lot of buzz. And I think there was a guy here in Chula Vista that was responsible for it. And it's cool the way they design the courses because they can do things you can't do in real life. So I think it's a kind of a fun aside, just to kind of keep us entertained.
John, you're invited to waste all the free time you have in your life watching computerized golf on ESPN.
I'll just take in the highlights.
Not me. I'll pass on that. Okay, this podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you.